Hey guys, we are live at the Grind Never Stops podcast. This is episode 7. Today, in this segment, we will preview the National Hockey League season opening day that starts January 13th, and that we hope that there won't be any COVID-19 positive tests. And that we can go on for the season because it's been a long time. It has been a long time since the NHL has played, but we will preview in just a second. Just give me one moment. Let me get things straight here. Give me 1 second. So we're gonna preview the NHL. We're gonna start with the games that are gonna be starting early. The first one is obviously the Pittsburgh Penguins, who will be playing the Philadelphia Flyers. And you know that the Penguins are coming off a disappointing playoffs, like the bubble, as they lost to the Habs, which made the Habs make the playoffs. They lost to the Montreal Canadiens, but expect them to go the distance with Malkin and Crosby. And for the Flyers, they're coming off a huge win against the Habs, and that you're gonna expect more from Flyers this season. And as you know, the Flyers have had a history of having bad goaltenders, but I think they have found the right one this offseason. Next, you got the Montreal Canadiens, who also lost in the playoffs. They will play the Toronto Maple Leafs. We just talked about how the Canadiens beat the Penguins, but the Canadiens need more from all around, all their team. And I know that they should have got rid of most of their staff, but the Canadiens are a good team. They're not at that level yet, because you remember they were 12th place, and they made the playoffs because the league changed and gave them a chance. And that's not fair, because teams that work their hardest all season will got eliminated. Not even in the first round. It was a playoff seeding, and they lost to the Habs. And I personally didn't like it, but as you know, we have to do what's the league wants. We can't just not play, but expect the Habs to have a great game against the Maple Leafs. And the Maple Leafs need to play better, because they had a very, very disappointing playoffs. And as you know, that they made the playoffs, but they played horribly. They played very horrible against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And you gotta forget, most of the playoffs was in Toronto, and it was in their home ice, and that they couldn't get it done, and they couldn't score, as they got shut out in Game 7. They got shut out in Game 7, and that it was a poor performance, and it was a poor coaching from the Leafs as well, as the head coach played all their best players on one lineup, and it was like nobody was doing everything. Marner was the most struggling Leaf in the playoffs. And yes, he had that great game when they had a comeback in Game 5, but that's about in Game 6, and that's about it. And they lost to yes, they lost to Columbus, but Columbus is a bad team. They're not that great. And yes, they beat the Lightning the season before. It's just because the Columbus had Tampa Bay Lightning's numbers, and Leafs had a chance to make some noise in the playoffs, but they couldn't get it done. But I think this season the Leafs got veteran Joe Thornton. They got some great defensemen, and that I think that they will be better than last season, because last season they had injuries, then the as you know, the pandemic happened, and you guys know what happened last season. New head coach Nylander finally stepped up. They traded Kapanen in a surprising move that even even to this day I don't agree about that trade, but you gotta do what you gotta do, and that the Leafs need to play much better. The Maple Leafs need to play much better this season, and that they can maybe that they can go over the hump this season, because they got some new defensemen, and that it's it's what the GM. It's not the GM's fault that they lost the way that they lost. The GM gives the coach a good roster, and that's what you have to do, because right now the Leafs on in goaltender. Obviously, they have Matt Hutchinson, Aaron Dell, Jack Campbell, and Frederick Anderson. As you guys all know, Frederick Anderson hasn't been signed to the extension, but you will for sure that change that they will change it, but they will sign him. I'm being confused now. They're gonna sign him to extension. They want to sign an extension, and they need to sign him to an extension, because Frederick Anderson has been probably the best, probably the best Maple Leaf goalie they have ever had since Curtis Joseph and Ed Belfour, and that's a long time. That's a long time, and I think that signing Frederick Anderson is the best move right now, and it should be the most important move right now, because for backup goalie, they might it's gonna be a fight for backup goalie between Jack Campbell, former Sabre, Aaron Dell, former San Jose Shark, and Michael Hutchinson, who played backup for the Leafs last season. So expect these three goalies to fight for the backup position, because obviously Frederick Anderson will not play all season long, because as you know, he had a lot of injuries this past season, concussion, and all those kind of things. So I feel that they would need a great backup goal, and for me, if you ask me, the veteran, which is Jack Campbell and Aaron Dell, but I think that Michael Hutchinson will probably be the legit backup goalie for the Leafs, but I expect all of them to fight for it. On defense, you know that they still have from last season Travis Dermott, Justin Hall, Martin Marchand, Jake Muzzin, Morgan Riley, and Rasmus Sandin. But the newcomers, as you guys all know, is Zach Bogosian, who's coming up from Winnipeg. You got TJ Brody. Who's coming from Calgary. You got also rookie, not rookie, but it's a rookie, Mac Hollowell, Timu Kivihalme, Mikko Lehtinen. You also got Kalle Rosen, who's also a great Swedish defenseman. But the only person that I'm really worried about is Morgan Riley because he's the leader on this team. And yes, he had another amazing season with his assists, with his leadership, and I think he needs to um, continue being the leader of this team. Because to be honest, I don't think Matthews is the leader in this team. Because with the off-court stuff, with all the things that has happened, Morgan Riley is the real leader on this team, and that's why I think Riley should have got the captain, even though he's the alternate captain for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that, and on offense, that the number one, the weakness for the Leafs was not the offense. It was the defense. It wasn't goaltending. It was a defense. And it was the offense because all season long their offense was perfect. The goalie was decent. But the problem was always the defense. And yes, their defense might got a little better, but the offense was ice cold. Was ice cold in the playoffs. In the night, it wasn't even the playoffs because they played for playoff seeding because of the pandemic, and it was a bubbles. And offensively, they got some big guns. And as you know, the same players that are returning is Pierre Engvall, Zach Hyman, Alexander Crawford, who came from the Kadri trade 2 seasons ago, Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, Mikheyev, William Nylander, Jason Spezza, who had an amazing season. And the newcomers, as you guys all know, is Jimmy Vesey, is Jumbo Joe, the veteran. And I think that people are not proud of signing Joe Thorne, but I think he's a good signing because he will bring leadership. And I know people will say, which leadership? He never won a Stanley Cup. And that the best chance he had was in Boston or San Jose, but Joe Thorne can bring leadership to this team. Great, great leadership, and I don't care what you have to say. Jumbo Joe is a veteran in this league, and he can hit. He's one of the he had one of the best passing seasons in NHL history, and so did Jason Spezza when was in his prime. And obviously, both Joe Thorne and Jason Spezza are way past their prime, but they can still make an impact on the ice. And you know what Spezza did? He was a key player for most of the Leafs wins. He won that extra faceoff. He played that extra minute shorthanded that saved them from letting in a power play goal. Joe Thorne is a great player because the Leafs' weakness last season was being soft. They were being soft. They were letting teams coming in at the Scotiabank Arena and blowing them out. They like the Leafs was one of the softest teams in the leagues, and come and saying that is a Leaf fan right here. I'm a Leaf fan, and that I think Joe Thorne is a great pickup. And I know that people saying oh, he's old. What's the point? He could he could be your second leader on the offensive end. He can hit. He can be. He's big. He's strong. He can make this team not a soft team and be a strong team because that was the problem for the Leafs last season and the year before. It was them being soft, and yes, that could be disrespectful to say Leafs Nation, but I'm a part of Leafs Nation as well, and we teams were just coming in and bullying us on the rink, on the ice. So I think Joe Thorne, 6'4", from London, Ontario, 220 pounds, is a key signing for the Leafs. And John Tavares didn't have a great season last season, so expect him to have a better one. And another signing that I was really happy about is getting Wayne Simmons, who's also a checker, who can also score, who can play on a power play well, and he can play great hockey. So Wayne Simmons is a great signing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. The newcomers, obviously rookie Nicola Robertson, Nick Pitan, um, uh, Travis Boyd, Alexander Barabanov, Joey Anderson, and Kenny Agostino. But the one player that I want to step up is Match Marner and Matthew, the big boy, William Nylander, the money guy. They need everyone to step up. And the thing that I'm looking here is that most of the players on this squad is from Canada. On the defensive end, they got 1, 2, 3, 5 Canadians. And on the offensive end, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players from Canada, and that is great. But expect the Leafs to have a great season. And that the first game they play the Habs, and the next two, game 2 and game 3, will be against the Sens in Ottawa. They'll play back to back, and expect that to be a great rivalry. And as you know, they're in the all Canadian division, so that's why they will play. Most of the teams that they'll play will be Canadian. Other games that will be going on Wednesday, it's when obviously I just said about the Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. The Penguins will play in Philadelphia at 4:30 p.m. 5:30 p.m. The Montreal Canadiens will play the Toronto Maple Leafs, as I said, and that's at 7 p.m. Eastern Time in Toronto. And then the Hawks. Expect the Hawks to be a lottery team this season, as Jonathan Toews is injured. He's probably going to miss a long period of time. Corey Crawford, they got rid of Corey Crawford, and then Crawford retired. As Crawford went to New Jersey, and then he retired, surprisingly. And they will play the champions Lightning, and the Lightning might be good and might not be good, because yes, Stamkos is returning, but Stamkos is still not in game shape, and Kucherov is out for probably most of the season, and Tyler Johnson is also expect to miss some time. So expect this game to be not a blow as you think it will be. It will be played in Tampa Bay. The Vancouver Canucks will visit the Edmonton Oilers in Edmonton. And for Edmonton Oilers, they need to have a better season after a disappointing playoff loss to the Blackhawks, to the lower seed Blackhawks. So expect the Oilers to have a better season, and expect Connor McDavid to continue his MVP performance as he's been having. And the Canucks too, they got some new bodies, so expect them to have a great season, and expect to be the most underrated goalie in the National Hockey League, Braden Holtby, to have a great season after having another disappointing season with the Washington Capitals. Next, it will be the former champs, not this year, last year, but the year before. The Blues will visit Colorado, and expect St. Louis to have a better season as well, as they had a disappointing season. And Colorado had a great regular season, and then playoffs they weren't as great, but expect Colorado to have a better season. And that's for the season preview for the games. Tomorrow, make sure to tune in tomorrow. We will do a preview for the games. No, on Thursday morning we will do a segment previewing the second day of the National Hockey League, as that's where the other teams will get to play. But there is other news today, is that Corey Perry and Louis Erickson was put on waivers. Great veterans, and I expect people to try to claim him. Also, Blues signed Hoffman to a 1-year, $4 million deal, and that deal is super low for Mike Hoffman because first they signed him to a professional trial, and then they signed him to a $4 million deal, and that's pretty low because last season he had 29 goals and 59 points in only 69 games. And then he scored 3 goals and 5 points in the playoff round as they lost because he was on Florida and they lost to the New York Islanders. And he is coming off also close to $4 million deal as his old contract was 20.75, and he's from Kitchener, Ontario. So I think that he deserved more money, and that the Montreal Canadiens waived Corey Perry because they didn't have a choice and that they were over the cap, and that they recently signed him last month on a 1-year, $750,000. Travis Dermott returns to practice after he was injured, and expect people to claim the Vancouver Canucks veteran Louis Erickson as he was put on waivers. And other news for the NBC broadcast on NHL on NBC, they have take out Mike Milbury, who's been on the network since 2008, and he has coached the Bruins and coached the Islanders. And Mike Babcock, former head coach of the Leafs, will be in for the coverage of the NHL on NBC. But make sure to tune in on Sportscaster as I will do play-by-play all day long on Wednesday. We will start obviously with the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers at the Wells Fargo. Then we'll go to Toronto to do the Canadiens and Leafs. Then we'll go to Tampa Bay to do the Blackhawks. Well, as soon as the Canadiens and Leafs are done. Then once that's done, we will do the Canucks and Oilers, and obviously we'll update you on the Blues and Avalanche. But thanks for tuning in to the NHL Season Preview, and thanks for all the viewers, and make sure to check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, Facebook, and all everywhere. It's the Grind Never Stops podcast, and it's your host, DJ Joe, signing out.